Hey, Satanico here for Godlovescomics with another comics unboxing. As the comics are now rolling in, now that I've had a little bit of time on my hands and I've been spending a little too much time on eBay, and I've picked up about 4 different lots. They've all been relatively small. This is maybe the biggest one, and it's only got 10 copies, 10 comics in them. But these are all bronze and silver, and came in this package. This is for bronze and silver comics, and this is a dealer with a lot of feedback and pretty haphazard, I would say. This is all that is on the cover of, on the top of the box. Just a piece of paper. It's not even like crumpled up paper to cushion it. It's just a piece of paper. So, and then he seems to have one comic here in Mylar, and it's just against the piece of cardboard. So pretty haphazard packaging for a very experienced eBayer. I think he has 100% feedback. But let's see what we have. Pretty excited about these. Okay, so that's the comic I certainly don't have. I don't think I have any of these comics, actually. This is The Amazing Spider-Man number 90, and that is a Gil Kane and John Romita cover. You can see the signature down here. Maybe GK and Romita. Yep. And let's see. This is the death of Captain Stacy. Spidey's battle with Doc Ock from the previous issue continues in And Death Shall Come. Script by Stan Lee. Pencils by Gil Kane. Inks by John Romita Sr. And Kane and Romita cover. An important issue in the early Spider-Man saga featuring some of the finest Lee, Kane, Romita work ever. And this is about a $30, $40 comic, depending on condition, of course, but in this condition, it's about a $30 or $40 comic, maybe. You can see some scuffing along here. Doesn't have a grain on the back, but I think these were all considered in the very good to fine. I'm not sure if that's this little line here is in the plastic or it's in the comic, but I'll take a better look at that later. And next up is number 75 of Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. Now, this one is one of the lesser ones, certainly, that I got out of here, but a nice comic nonetheless. Daredevil 75, cover pencils by the late, great Marie Severin, and inks by the also late Herb Trimpe, and the first appearance of El Condor in Now Rides the Ghost of El Condor. And the script is by Jerry Conway, and the art is by Gene Colan. So, and that's probably about a $10 comic, give or take. I mean, somebody has to be looking for it, of course, but I'm going on the conservative side of looking at, I looked at compare prices with my comic shop, which of course is always a little bit overpriced, but certainly not as much as the Overstreet price guide. And then you also kind of have to look at eBay and see what's listed there, and kind of come to some kind of evaluation. This is Fantastic Four, number 119. My joke here is that no matter what, it's always the black guy they put in jail, probably jaywalking. But this was, I guess, back when Black Panther was maybe a member, or a pretty recurring member of the Fantastic Four. This has it's got a pretty ugly little, more than a thumb bend there. It's a little bit of a tear. Other than that, actually looks in decent shape. I mean, the cover gloss is not as great as it should be, but not bad. The Daredevil certainly looks better. This one is by Roy Thomas. The script is by Roy Thomas, and the pencils by John Buscema and Joe Sinnott. Cover by Buscema and Sinnott as well. And it's probably about a $6 or $7 comic. We'll tally these all up at the end. And this one, it says $14 right here. And I certainly got it for less than that, considering the whole value of the lot. This is Captain America and the Falcon, number 146. Mission Stop the Fem Force. Which I would assume are these gals right here. And that's Hydra. So, Captain America 146 is covered by John Romita. The script is by Gary Friedrich, pencils by Sal Buscema, and the inks by John Verpoorten. And this is probably about an $8 comic, reasonably. They were trying to sell it for $14, which sounds pretty much like my local comic shop, which will put like $12 to $14 on basically anything that was from the Bronze Age. It's pretty ridiculous. But you might be able to sell this for $8 if somebody's actually looking for it. Okay, here's a nice one. Captain Marvel number 4. Actually looks in really nice condition. It's got a little bit of a thumb bend there. The corners are really nice. The spine is really nice with just a couple of creases. But this is definitely a fine closing. Close to very fine, maybe very fine. Yeah, very nice. And that's probably also a Gene Colan cover. It certainly looks like it. And it is. Captain Marvel number 4 is scripted by Thomas again, pencils by Gene Colan, and the inks are by Vinnie Coletta. And that's probably about a $20 book, conservatively. I mean, maybe you get $25, $30 for it, especially in proximity to the Captain Marvel movie or the sequel, obviously. But it's at least, $15 to $20 book. So that's a nice pickup. And here is the Submariner again. You can see the 2 different iterations of his costume. He's had several. I always like the blue one. I mean, this one's cool too, but I like the blue one and especially when he have wings kind of under the underarms, which this is not the case here. This says, I don't know. And that looks like a classic Gil Kane cover. And the Gil Kane style. And it is. Cover pencils by Gil Kane, inks by Mike Esposito, who did so much work during the Bronze Age. Script is by Marv Wolfman. Pencils by George Tuska. Not always one of my favorites, but, he's effective. Inks by Vinnie Coletta. It has a Marvel value stamp. Series A, number 52, Quicksilver by John Buscema. Probably about a $4 to $5 comic. I should check for sure to see if the value stamp is still in it. That's mostly just a good comic to thumb through and check out the art. Now this one's nice. I love the Kirby and Coletta and obviously Stan Lee Thors from this period. I think is one of Kirby's greatest runs. I mean, his Fantastic Four Silver Age stuff was amazing as well. But his run on Thor was spectacular. And that's a beautiful cover. Love the cover. Love this era. It says 6.0, and it actually looks like a 6.0. Corners are actually pretty nice. You've got a problem down here where it's got a couple of creases. Not too bad, though. A little bit of color breaking creases. And certainly some spine wear. But 5.5, maybe a 6. And this comic is, as I said, Stan Lee, pencils by Jack Kirby, inks by Vinnie Coletta, The Origins of the Inhumans Backup, The Reason Why, script by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Joe Sinat. And then this is like a $15 to $20 comic as well. I actually really enjoy the backups because, of course, you get a main story by Kirby. Then you get a backup also by Lee and Kirby. And I've got an issue close to this one, which has one of those Inhumans backups, and they're also great. So I'm really happy to get that comic. And then here's another Kirby, Lee and Kirby. And this is Fantastic Four number 97. I don't have this one either. I've seen it quite a few times. I've always kind of been amused by how long Reed's arm is, how odd baby Franklin looks. I like the way he's drawn Sue in the foreground, and she's testing the baby bottle. It's a cool cover. And It's not worth very much, particularly. It's 119. No, I'm sorry. This is 97, but it's excuse me. Again by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, inks by Frank Giacoia, and covers by Kirby and Vor Porton. And it's probably about a $10 to $15 comic. And this has an interesting, it has the average print run and average paid circulation statement in it. And the print run for this, at this era of Marvel and this year, was 546,000 copies. And the average paid circulation was 340,363, which, as always, is kind of indicative of how far the comics industry has fallen, because 100,000 copies, you know, in the top 5 comics that are selling right now, 100,000 copies is about the max, generally. And Fantastic Four was certainly, at this juncture, I don't think it was Marvel's best-selling comic by any stretch. Then we have another nice one. Very nice. Certainly one I don't have. The Avengers number 30, and actually looks quite good. Corners are good. Tiny little tears. Spine is pretty nice. Obviously it looks better in the bag. Here's the problem right here, is there's a couple of superficial scratches. I mean, actually color-breaking scratches. I can't call them superficial. I don't feel them, but I do presume that they are actually on the comic and not in the bag. But other than that, actually quite nice. Certainly, I would think about a $30 comic. And, let's see, Avengers number 30 is by Jack Kirby. Obviously, Stan Lee wrote it, but the cover is by Kirby and Giacoia again, and Frenzy in a Far Off Land. So that is correct. And the cover is by, the interior pencils are by Don Heck. Not always one of my favorites, even though he did some really, a lot nicer work back in his pre-Marvel days, and also with some of the romance comics, and Frank Giacoia again. But that's a nice $30 comic, easily. And I always like the floating heads. Always been a fan of those. Assume that's the Enchantress, that's the Swordsman, Power Man, Cap, Hawkeye, Wasp, I suppose. And last but not least, I guess the piece de resistance, because it is in Mylar, is Iron Man number 4. Nice. It's actually a really nice copy. It is a shame. It does have the subscription crease right down the center. Color breaking crease, always recognizable. I saw it in the pictures, but it was fine. Other than that, I mean, because the spine is actually very nice. Only a few very small ticks on the spine. Corners are actually nice. Slight, tiny blunting, which you would expect, but actually a really beautiful copy. And they had this priced at $85, which is, well, this must not be for the same bag, because it says, it says issue number 3 and near mint, so okay, at least the bag is from something else. Motor City Comics from Michigan, of course, Detroit. Okay, so it's not the same. But this is easily, I would say, a $30 or $40 comic. Let's take a look at the thing. Okay, Iron Man number 4, script by the great Archie Goodwin, and the art is by Johnny Craig. I always sometimes forget that these, that Johnny Craig was working on the Iron Man this early. The cover is by Johnny Craig, and the interior art, which is good. I prefer Johnny Craig a little bit to Don Heck. Johnny Craig, of course, legendarily one of the great EC bullpenners for EC Comics. Always had a really clean art style, but did in fact work for Marvel after EC's demise, and was a penciler and then got moved to doing a lot of inks for Marvel. But that is definitely the crown jewel, even though, I mean, Avengers 30 is nothing to sneeze at. And in terms of just my personal preference, I love the store. And also, I'm quite happy with the Spider-Man as well. So, ultimately, I added these up, and conservatively, about $165 total. I paid $84 with shipping, so anytime you pay about half of what the value is, a relative conservative value. Now, if I bundled all these together and sold them like this guy did, this guy started this auction at 99 cents, which is always a little bit risky, but if you have a legitimate routine following and you know that you're going to draw a lot of attention to the listing, then certainly it pays off in the end sometimes. But this bidding started at 99 cents, and this was pretty hot and heavy, as you would expect for this kind of Silver Age and early Bronze Age lot. So it actually landed 27 bids, and I knew that it was deeply underbidded right up until the end when it was still at $46. So I waited until the final seconds. You have to really kind of evaluate, not just, oh, I just want to win this lot. So you don't want to just put in a $200 bid when it's not worth it, because some other lunatic might come in and bid $175, and then you're actually stuck paying almost $200. So you've got to determine how much you're willing to pay for this. And I don't remember exactly what I bid. I do remember what the final, winning bid was. But I think I went probably 85, 90, which I thought was fair. And as expected, you always have to anticipate that there's going to be at least one or two other sharks in the water waiting for something like this. So right up until the last seconds, the high bid was 46, and it kind of stayed there. It was 40, 42, 44, 46. These were all private listing bidders, so I can't even evaluate who was bidding, if it was the same person or what. But then at the last second, I bid, and I bid pretty high, and there was a big bid in there for 75, 72, so I won it at 76, 72, but I actually a bid higher than that, and I think that's actually a really good buy. With shipping, it was $84, and as I said, I believe this lot is at least 150, but I mean, it's 160, and that's fairly conservative, I think. Some really nice comics here. Obviously, some of these aren't going to just jump off if you put them, if you list them. Might not sell immediately, or certainly might not sell as high as you expect, but then some might get a little bit more. I mean, Iron Man, Avengers, those are reliable sellers. Early Kirby, Thor, and always Spider-Man. Always Spider-Man, especially a Spider-Man pre-100. So, very nice pickup, and I've got another haul from DC next time, and then a couple more coming. I think some more DC coming soon enough, but that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much, and please feel free to leave some comments, and also check out my comic book readings. I'm still slaving away on Swamp Thing. It's been an absolute pleasure, but I'm nearing the end of a massive, Alan Moore's massive run on Swamp Thing, which has been fantastic. So check that out if you feel so inclined. Otherwise, leave a comment about what you think about this haul. Did I overpay? Did I underpay? Was it a great deal? Like any of these comics? That's it. Thanks very much for listening, and see you next time. Bye.